Okay. I'd like to call this meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council, serving as the sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to order at 3:01 p.m. If we can, please rise for the
Roll
prayer.
call.
Oh,
Roll
Roll
call.
call. My apologies. Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back.
All right, please let the record reflect that all non-council members are present. I'd like to take this moment to acknowledge Almighty God and thank Him for our bountiful blessings, especially for the parish's natural resources. We give thanks to God for our brave and courageous men and women in our military who daily risk their lives to protect our precious freedom, and we pray for our world leaders to know how to obtain world peace. We pray that this government body, comprised of both council and administration, will always serve our parish with honesty, humility, and equality to all. And as this government body gathers here today, we pray for the wisdom to know right from wrong and the courage to do that which is right.
Amen.
Following Commissioner Gui,
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving straight into the agenda, Ms. Barb.
Mr. Chairman, there is no executive session. Number 3, status report by the Executive Port Director.
Sandy, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chairman, members of the board. I am Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District. Follows as my Executive Director's report for the reporting period of 11 December of 20 to 13 January of 21. During this time frame, we received a visit from Venture Global's lead engineer, Forey Musser, and Senior Vice President and Project Director for the Plaquemines project, Michael Perkins. Both said the project had experienced a few setbacks, mostly COVID-19 related, but Venture Global is pressing forward with their plans and schedule. We met with Dan Robbins, Senior and Junior, and subsequently received a proposal for their services representing the PPHTD at the state level. The Robbins contract is on the agenda for your consideration today. Our staff continues along the path of the diversity training, and I must admit, not only are we enjoying the program, but it has had a genuine, healthy impact at our office. Lastly, today, an introduction is being made for the renewal of the employment contract for Mr. Paul Matthews. As the Executive Director of the Port, I can attest that Paul Matthews is an invaluable asset to our port and our community. The Deputy Port Director acts as the Chief of Staff of the organization and runs the port on a day-to-day basis. Paul, working alongside with our port directors, has ensured all suspenses have been met on a timely basis, was instrumental in the implementation of the port's procurement process, ensuring a Plaquemines First campaign and small local and minority inclusion were hallmarks of the plan. He has responsibly prepared and monitored the port's budget and has ensured the administration of the port is efficiently and safely applied, that operations are conducted efficiently and within budget, and the overall health and safety of all our employees, particularly within this pandemic era, remains paramount. He has greatly assisted in the formulation and attainment of individual, department, and overall port goals. I ask each of you today to support him by voting for his contract. Mr. Chairman, subject to your questions or comments or those of the board, this concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board members? Commissioner Kognovich.
Yes, thank you for setting up the meeting with UNO. I wanted to know if PLT answered any of my other questions yet.
We provided a summary, but in the last conversation I had, they did not have any information yet, but I am working with them to get that.
Thank you.
We also have a monthly update with PLT. The biggest stick in the mud is really just commercializing based on the market.
I was talking about the artifacts.
Yeah, right.
Commissioner Gui.
Yeah, I just wanted to let both Port Director Sanders and Deputy Director Matthews. I have sent a copy of the resolution regarding your contract and the specifics of the contract this week to all of the council members, and I've requested that they contact me with any questions they may have. I would like to, for obvious reasons, I would like this taken up in 2 weeks so that if for some reason it's not renewed, you and your family can make the proper preparations, or God willing, and hopefully it will be renewed and we can move on. So, and if you have any questions of me, as always, feel free to call.
Sir. Commissioner LaFrance.
Yes, Mr. Matthew, could you please tell me what is your definition of artifacts?
My definition, I don't understand the
What is
question.
your definition of artifacts?
Whatever Webster's dictionary says is an artifact, understanding that certain artifacts are certain items that are there in the ground that people discover over time that have some type of historic significance, or may simply just be simple items that are discovered over time. But I don't understand the question, Ms.
Well,
LaFrance.
when I look up the definition of artifacts, it told me man-made tools, man-made tools or any type of pottery or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Never once did they tell me that it was human bones.
Okay.
Okay? So my question is, if human bones were found on the site,
Mm-hmm.
and that site is in my district, why wasn't I notified?
You were, sir. I sent an email to the entire board in October prior to introduction of any artifacts being moved from the site to UNO. And then
Again, I asked you, you sent the email saying artifact. So I asked you, what is your definition of artifact? So your definition of artifact, does it include human bones?
in the email that I sent, sir, it included those, yes. I sent you a list of all the artifacts found, and that was in October 12th, I believe.
I didn't receive it.
I also resent that same email to everyone in December when Mr. Kognovich asked about that email and asked for the list. And at that exact board meeting, minutes later, I sent it to the entire board. Does anybody else remember getting that email?
I got the second one.
You got the second one? Did anybody get the second one and or the first one? You did, Mr. Gouy? Anybody else? Ms. Newberry, Mr. Arborough? Okay.
So what is the procedure we have to follow when we find human bones on a site?
We followed it. We made sure they're curated, and that's why we're working with UNO to make sure they're curated, sir.
Does that site have to be protected by any security?
Yeah, we tried to actually protect the site, and we wanted to put a fence up. However, the board decided not to put a fence up on the site. It was voted on in April or May. We did a procurement, we had quotes, and we were told by the board that it was too much money. I want to say it was $20,000 or $30,000 because we were concerned.
Mr. Paul
sorry?
Matthew, the reason you told us that you wanted to put up a fence on that site
Mm-hmm.
is wanted to protect people that was hunting and that was shooting on that site.
That's correct.
That's what you told. You never once told us about any human bones being found.
So we didn't know at the time, sir.
Well, again, so don't try to confuse us. Don't try to confuse us. That's the reason why you wanted to put up the fence was to protect people from shooting. Again, I don't know any chain link fence can protect anybody from being shot.
Okay.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, it's a very a touchy subject. I think in the future, it'd probably be prudent to flag something like that, not have it buried in a 200-page attachment. It kind of boggles the mind that we wouldn't have had a discussion or a specific meeting around something like that. Things of that nature put a complete stop to projects like PLT. And I'm a little surprised that the board wasn't apprised of that, how big of a deal that really is from the very beginning.
Well, I'll remind you, Mr. Chairman, that on October 12th, I sent an email to every single board member discussing the introduction of taking these items and being curated by UNO, and I listed every single item and how many of those items were found. Prior to sending that email out to the entire board, we had our standard Monday meetings prior to a board meeting with Ms. Newberry and you, sir, and I listed out every single item, and I sent the two of you emails regarding every single item. That was in October. The item was introduced in the first meeting of October and then voted on in the second meeting of October.
Sure.
And then subsequently, Mr. Konovich asked about the issue in December, and I sent out the same email to the entire board to remind them that they had the information. So I just want to make that clear.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews, for the timeline there. I'm just, what I'm trying to say is, something like that, it's a big deal, and it probably warrants more than just being buried in an email. And if I remember the call correctly, which due to COVID-19, I wasn't coming into the office, and you had mentioned that there were some artifacts and that there was an email, and I asked you specifically, were there any human bones?
And I said yes, and I listed out every single one, and I sent you a spreadsheet of every single item, sir, and the amount that we had, yes.
You mentioned
I
that,
can resend you those documents, sir.
but I'm just, trying to, think about this again from, you mentioned there were a couple of fragments, and I think what's been concluded after reading some of these surveys is that there is a full-blown cemetery on the site. Is that correct?
I'm not aware of that, sir. I'm just the information that I received from PLT is the same information I sent to you.
Got it. Okay. I yield. Commissioner Russo.
Yes, I just wanted to comment when you talked about the fence. No time was the fence indicated that it was going to protect any graveyard or cemetery, anything that was there. And the second thing is that when this item was on the agenda, it was asked to be deferred, and we were passing over it to be deferred because some people wanted to look into it more thoroughly, and you insisted that we go back to the item and pass the item. And I guess that the board gave in to your wishes, and we passed it, and as a result of that, now people are learning what was in it, and we should have deferred it at the time and not pursued it. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board?
Yes.
Mr. LaFrance, please.
Do y'all have any list of family members, descendants of the people that was buried on that site?
No, sir.
You want it?
Yeah, I'd like to get it. I don't know if you have the same list that I have, but speaking to some of the elderly from Ironton, they was very familiar about that burial site. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. LaFrance. Are there any questions from the members of the public? Please step to the podium and state your name and address.
Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year.
I know it is.
From the public's perspective, I'll just say that as far as the fence goes and the artifacts, there was never a discussion about artifacts and a fence. That was just the security, and that was voted down. There was never to support you, Mr. France, Commissioner, on that goes. Maybe I don't know the procedures, but let me ask you, Commissioner Gouy, you just mentioned that you're talking about bringing up a resolution or was circulated to extend Mr. Matthews' contract. I don't see it on the agenda. It's not on the agenda?
Be introduced.
I'm sorry.
It'll be introduced today.
It'll be brought up today? Okay. Mr. Sayers, I have lots of questions. One, I don't hear any report about what's happening with all these projects that we've been pumping money into in the parish for years and haven't seen anything happen yet. I'm also hearing that you all are not going forward with the development down there, and you're going to let this guy, Veta, or whatever his name is, do this deal himself. He's talking about buying Mr. Nungas's land, all his lands up and down the river, and he's trying to raise $35 million. It's never been put together. That's one question. You could maybe respond to that. Section, Global Venture. Where are we on that project now? Just start with those two. I have several more questions to you, if you don't mind.
Okay, as far as pumping money into projects,
Say again?
as far as pumping money into projects, there was...
Point of order. I would like to get an opinion from the parliamentarian on exactly the rules of order, on the open discussion, back and forth dialogue. Can we finally put this to rest, Mr. Garrett, and give your opinion on whether or not this is Loud?
Under public comment, the intent and purpose of the public comment law is to allow members of the public to make comment to the council before the council takes action. It's not a forum for a discussion between a member of the public and a member of the administration on an issue. That would be more appropriately taken up outside of the meeting.
Danny, I appreciate your comment. However, when we get a report from the port director of what activities that have been going on since the last meeting, and it lacks any responses to what's going on in the activities, where can we ask that? Or do I have to direct that question to a commissioner, and the commissioner can ask that question?
And again, public comment, certainly you can include questions in your public comment, but it's not really a Q&A. It's for you, and if you could express to the members of the body that you don't believe the report does enough, and then the members of the body, when they take the matter up, can then address that with the administration. But it's really not, the public comment period is not designed for a member of the public to have an interaction directly with the members of the administration. It's for you to provide commentary to the elected body.
But if that director wishes to answer that question, respond to it?
Again, I think it's out of order for there to be direct communication during the public comment period between a member of the public and the administration. Certainly, y'all can go outside and have that conversation. You can make an appointment and have that conversation outside of the meeting, but the purpose of the public comment period is for a member of the public to make comment to the elected members of the body to inform them as to how they should move forward.
And you did mention that I can have an opinion and state that the report that was given was not accurate?
Yes, sir.
Well, let me just go on record to the fact, the reports that we get monthly from the port director and his assistant director are less than adequate, both anywhere in what we've been doing, and give the public where our money's being spent and what's going on. Thank you. If anybody, Mr. Chairman, you may want to respond to me.
If you could please pass that to the council secretary.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I didn't know if you were giving me
No,
that
this is-
report. Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Mr. Valley, I always like to err on the side of, giving the public a chance to express their opinion and ask their questions. Sunshine is the best disinfectant oftentimes. And, I think we do better sometimes when things are in the light. And, if, you have a slightly, different view than the commissioners up here, it's important that maybe you ask those questions. And, unfortunately, those rules were, established long before, I ever sat here. And again, I just apologize that you can't.
I have no problem with those rules. Mr. Garrett, I accept full-heartedly what you said. I've been on enough boards and committees. I just stated my questions to you. Maybe one of you all might like to ask those questions of what's been going on.
Certainly, will do. Thank you very much. Moving along. Mr. Henry, can you please state your name and address to the record?
Arthur Henry, Belchase. And Mr. LaFrance, I was in front of the house when I asked that question, what that deal with UNO. Mr. Matthew, if that was bones in there, man, that's somebody's family. That should be corrected, And I'm glad you brought it up, sir. But it's something that really needs to be looked at, Just do the right thing there. Just do the right thing.
Thank you for your commentary, Mr. Henry. As far as I understand, I think human remains are not supposed to be curated but reinterred on site. So thank you for that. Any other questions from the public? Ms. Riley, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Tracy Riley, resident of Plaquemines Parish and president of NAACP, 13482 Highway 23, Belchase. In light of what we just heard about the rules, I'm going to try to make a comment without asking, because this is new news to me, and I don't know what the timing is. But sitting back there observing the questions to Mr. Matthews, it looked like he is the target for some rage, it appears, and I can understand wholeheartedly how family members might feel. But I hope that whatever stage you all are in reviewing this situation, you're doing it in a way that is fair and gives Mr. Matthews the opportunity to lay out his facts of when he informed this body, because it looks like there's an argument developing here that perhaps he's being accused of not communicating with you. So, and I've sat in the meetings prior to this where there's discussion about emails not being read and misunderstandings with calendars. So my point here is, after seeing how hard the port works to do the bidding for this parish, that we would be sure to allow Mr. Matthews due process and whatever this accusation is that is developing, at least from my standpoint, sitting back. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Riley. Commissioner Russo, you have the floor. Commissioner LaFrance, you now have the floor.
Mr. Riley, I want to thank you for your opinion. However, I do not share the same opinion that you have. Okay. Mr. Sanders, can you give us an update on the container port? Since the last meeting, we have found out that New Orleans is moving forward with building a container port in Violet. So how does that affect our container port that you was planning on?
Mr. LaFrance, we are moving forward with the plan that I briefed the commissioners 2 weeks ago. And I would love to give you a brief. Would prefer to do that as we did last time at the port, because it involves a lot of sensitive information, particularly in light of what's going on at the Port of New Orleans. And I would gladly talk to you after this meeting to set up a one-on-one with you at the office, if you prefer.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Port of New Orleans received $15 million from the state.
Yes, sir.
Did we try to entertain any type of money from the state also?
No, sir, we have not petitioned the Port Priority Program,
May I ask why?
because at the time we did not have a project and we did not own the land.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Russo.
Along those lines, do we have a schedule? I know that there was a schedule that certain things had to be done by the end of the year. The end of the year is past. Now we're into the new year. What is the schedule on that?
We do have a schedule, and once again, I would like to discuss that in full at a similar meeting that we had 2 weeks ago. And you will be apprised of the full schedule.
You're going to set something up for us?
I will.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Are there any questions from the audience before moving along? All right. Moving down the agenda, please.
Discussion and update on the executive calendar. Commissioner Roussel.
Mr. Russo, you have the floor.
Okay. There has been some improvement with the calendar. Ms. Harlan is now emailing me a weekly calendar. It does seem to be light on content. However, if that's all of y'all are doing, then I can understand that. So I'm not sure if there's things that are not being put on the calendar, but at least I'm getting one now that seems to be in sync with other members. So I appreciate that. I just would like to have a little more depth to it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions from the board or from the audience? Mr. Valley?
Mr. Garrett, you're going to have to tell me if this is appropriate. One thing you mentioned when you brought up Mr. LaFrance is the status of the container terminal. I believe you all entered into an MOU to extend to third party 6 months, give an option to do a feasibility study on the property and to put up the balance of the monies for the container terminal. Can we get a status on that from somebody?
I'm not going to discuss that in a public forum, Mr. Chairman.
You all are the ones that voted on it, maybe one of you all might want to.
Sure. If any commissioners know a way to do that without revealing too much information about the entire.
I will save that for when we have our meetings that Mr. Russell requested, and we'll talk freely and in depth about that.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the audience? Moving along then.
There is no financial report to discuss. There are no bids and advertisements. Introductions of ordinances and resolutions. Mr. Chairman, we have two. The first one is for Commissioner Blink. A resolution authorizing the port director or his designee to negotiate, sign, execute, and enforce the attached lease agreement between Plaquemines Parish Port Harbor and Terminal District and Plaquemines Parish Government. The next one's for Commissioner Gui. A resolution authorizing and directing Maynard J. Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to enter into an employment contract for services as Deputy Port Director between the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District and Paul Matthews, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Mr. Chairman, that is all for the introductions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Marcotte. Just to clarify, the agreement between Plaquemines Parish Port and the Plaquemines Parish government is the lease for the Popich building. All right, moving along. I'm sorry, are there any questions from the board or the audience? All right, hearing none. Moving on, please.
Number 6, ordinances and resolutions on second and final reading and passage. There are none. Item 6B, an ordinance to amend and as amended readopt ordinance number 20-80, which approved the correction to the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District 2020 manpower budget to reflect the position of marine diesel mechanic on pay grade 17 and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
All right, and this is just a simple language change. It's my fault. I got classified versus unclassified mixed up. So anyway, are there any questions from the board? All right, seconding by Commissioner Gui. Are there any questions from the board or from the audience? All right, hearing none. Machine's open for voting. All 9 members are in favor.
6C, a resolution authorizing the director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District to transfer ownership of a 2012 Ford F-250 utility truck to Plaquemines Parish government for public use and benefit and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
All right, as read, are there any questions from the board or from the audience? Oh, I'm sorry, seconded by Gui again. Hearing none?
Yes, I mean,
I'm sorry, Commissioner Bartholomew, please go ahead.
I'm concerned about why are we transferring junk? The truck is a junk, piece of junk?
Oh, can you please speak into the mic?
Is that truck a piece of junk?
I actually looked at it personally, and all the doors, except for maybe 1 or 2.
I'm talking about the doors. I'm talking about the engine and stuff.
Mr. Bartholomew, we don't want it. Let's just put it that way.
That doesn't make sense. I can't see us we swapping junk out to the parish department, and we can't keep stuff older than ourselves.
Yeah, Mr. Bartholomew,
I'm voting no. I'm sorry. I'm gonna vote no for it.
That's fine.
I'm against that. I can't see us wasting money on trucks that's not gonna meet the standards of operation. I appreciate the offer, though. I really do.
All right. You know, after speaking with a lot of employees, it seems like on the parish side, there is a lack of functioning equipment, and something,
right.
something is better than nothing. But we'll go ahead and vote. Are there any questions from any other commissioners?
Yes.
Ms. Newberry?
Have you talked to the parish government, Plaquemines Parish government, on their side, the administration, about this truck, Mr. Blink?
I think I've had some discussions with a couple of the directors about it, but I mean, it may have been a while. I think we've been trying to do this for 4 months now?
Yeah, but are they willing to do something with the truck? That's all I want to know. Are they willing?
I'm sorry.
Are they willing to take the truck and do something with the truck besides
Yeah,
giving it to them and scrapping
discussions
it?
have been a little while back. I mean, we've talked about a lot since then.
Okay.
Are any members of the administration here?
So a door works. What else works?
So it has a service bed, so it'd be useful for a diesel mechanic, or solid waste.
2012, how much rust is in that bed?
Hey, if y'all don't want to take it, that's fine.
Call a question.
That's what I do.
All right. Call a question. All right. Motion fails. Moving along.
6D, at the request of Commissioner Newberry, is being deferred. 6E, an ordinance to amend and is amended to approve the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District 2021 operating budget of revenue expenditures and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Yeah, I want to move with this motion. Express second.
Second.
Okay. This is just putting the $54,000 back into the budget that was taken out for Mercury to continue. We signed a contract with Mercury about 6-7 months ago, and this is just putting the money back into the budget for them to continue to lobby us for the delegations up in the legislation back up in Washington, D.C. This is to help the port lobby things that are needed for us to get things done in the parish. It's not just for the port, it also helps the parish too. So it's kind of a double whammy. So if anybody has any questions.
Commissioner Russo.
Yes, is this a new contract or the 3-year contract?
It's the existing contract.
Existing contract.
3-year. As I had stated at the last meeting, and as I contacted Senator Vitter about the contract, that I can't support a 3-year contract. So I'll be voting no.
Well, we support the contract. It's already in place.
Ms. Newberry, if I may, I just want to clarify that this is about amending the budget to put the funds back in so they can continue to do their jobs. The contract itself is not actually on the table. It's just a budget amendment. So I just want to be clear about that.
That is correct.
Where are we getting the money from?
From the money that was taken out of the budget during the budget hearings.
Chimbro, we have the funds to put that money back in, is the question.
The funds will be coming from the reserves, the unrestricted balance.
Commissioner Bartholomew.
We're just, in reference to the 50,000, that's just for the remainder year, or that's for more than that?
That's just for 2021, sir.
For 1 year?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then at the 2022 budget hearing at the end of this year, you have an opportunity for the 22 budget.
You have to come back again and actually. Okay.
Commissioner Gui.
Just to clarify what you were saying, Mr. Matthews, we approved the contract with this firm for how long?
And last summer, in 2022, we approved the contract till January 2023. The reason for that is we understood that there was an election coming up that fall when we had the vote in the summer. So we thought it would be prudent to allow that firm to lobby for us during the 117th Congress, which was inaugurated January 3rd this year. And if over that 2-year period, the board deems that they want to go somewhere else, then you have enough time for the 118th Congress to move in with a different lobbyist.
One of the concerns, and which I agree with, one of the concerns was that the port commissioners were not being kept as informed as we should have. And I think that Senator Vitter has made, former Senator Vitter, Mr. Vitter, has made every effort since that realization that he also realized that he has been very attentive to giving us updates. And the way I understand it, we do have an existing contract. The issue now is do we fund a contract that we approved for someone? That's correct. That's correct. Thank you.
Are there any other questions by the board? Commissioner Russo.
Use name.
Am I on? Okay. As I stated last time during the budget hearings, there's been a change in administration in Washington, as I'm sure all of you know. I was looking for something to change for access to the new administration. I sent an email out to all of you concerning other possibilities. I've got no response. But I think that sending a 3-year contract on for a new administration is not really a benefit to us. And I understand we're talking about a Congress and this Congress, but this Congress will be gone and this contract will still be in place.
That's incorrect. Actually, the current Congress that was inaugurated January 3rd, that is the actual Congress that we set this contract up for. So that January 2023, if you so sought to have a new lobbyist, in the 118th Congress, you could have a new Congress for that. This remainder of the contract is only 2 years, and it was set up specifically based on the new Congress, the 117th. And then if you want to move on to someone else, you could for the 118th Congress.
The only problem with that is some of us won't be here. So, and we don't know if you'll be here. So the bottom line is that with the change of administration, I thought it would be a time to move into a new lobbyist. And I'm not saying that David has done a poor job as far as lobbying, but he has done poor communications, as Dr. Gouy has alluded to. And since the contract came up on the table, he's done a lot better because he wants the contract signed. And if this passes today, I'm hoping that he doesn't wait till the contract comes up for renewal again to put some effort out for some communication.
Are there any other questions by the board?
Yeah, I'm kind of, are we on a 1-year contract with funding for 1 year only?
The contract is to 2023.
So what are we voting on for today, to extend it?
No, just to put the money back in the budget to pay him for doing
For
the
this year
job.
only? I beg pardon?
The 2021 budget.
For this year only.
Just funding only. We're not talking about a contract today. It's just funding. That's the only discussion we're having.
Yeah, but-
Because the money was taken out, and
See, I don't want to go beyond my term with no kind of contracts. I'm not doing that. But my thing is with,
For the contract is.
I understand what you're saying, but I want to make sure that if I vote yes today, that's only for 1 year.
Well, let me address this. In our charter, it's very clear that, I know you don't like to recognize it, but you cannot encumber funds unless they're appropriated. And for you to sign a contract for 3 years without the appropriation to do that is a violation of our charter. Now, if you want to go back and read that, you don't encumber funds. You only encumber them, you only obligate them with a contract if they're encumbered, which this contract, as we are talking about and discussing today, is encumbering funds that's not even appropriated.
if that's the case, Mr. Roussel, the board voted for that contract, so if y'all want to amend it, y'all can see fit as you need to. Only thing we're talking about today is the funding for this
Right,
year.
I understand that you want to throw it back on the board and blame the board because they adopted a contract, but during the budget hearing, that's why it was removed, and because the contract was supposed to go away. Now, and I'm not going to belabor the point anymore, but even if this passes today, you're going to come back next year with the position that the contract's still in effect, but there'll be no encumbered funds. So, anyway, I'm going to drop it at that point, but the charter doesn't allow you to enter into contracts unless you have appropriated funds. This contract is a void contract, in my opinion, because there was no appropriated funds to cover it, except for the year that was paid.
Are there any other questions by the board? Mr. Valley, please.
Let me respond. Commissioner Bartholomew, when you all voted during your budget hearing to take these monies out of the budget, you solved your problem. It went away. Contract doesn't exist. You have no money to pay for it. If you do it today, you're reinstating his contract for the whole time. Right now, it's done. Like Mr. Roussel said, you got a change in the federal administration, which this contract and the lobbyist covers. It was handled poorly from before, even though Mr. Vitt is a very honorable, very nice man. It just wasn't done well. Now we got an opportunity and don't know what's going to happen in Washington. And I think this and the state contract ought to be tabled for the time being until you see where things are going and maybe look at what other lobbyists are out there. I've hired lobbyists quite a bit. It's an art. And you got to have the right people in the right place at the right time. It's like real estate, location, location, location. Right now, I would leave the money alone. I wouldn't appropriate any money. The contract sits on the side. And when you come up later on, you bring up the other contract, start going back out to people and let's see what's happening in Washington. We've already talked to Mr. Richmond about what's happening up there. It's going to be all shuffled around. We need to wait and see, in my opinion.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Mr. Henry, please.
Yeah, I agree. You got a new administration over there, and you already got Mr. Richmond already and the guy here. We trying to compete with New Orleans right now, so we need to just keep that money out. See, can we find somebody to deal with this administration that's coming up? Let the money be used wisely, wisely. Thank you.
Mr. Henry, are there any other questions from the audience or from the board? Ms. Newberry, I yield to you.
Yeah, let's vote.
And the measure does not pass. There are 2 abstentions by Bartholomew and Blink. There are 3 nays from Roussel, LaFrance, and Kognovich. Moving along the agenda, please.
Number 7, new business. There are no resolutions where suspension is being sought. Number 8, approval of the November 17, 2020 Port Budget Hearing and the December 10, 2020 regular meeting minutes.
I'll offer. LaFrance offers, seconded by Kognovich.
Question.
Mr. Black,
What is this?
minutes.
I'm just looking at something else that's on the screen. I'm making sure I'm not voting to suspend the rules. So what is it?
It went too fast. We didn't have a chance to change it.
Oh, wait.
All right. I know. Something we can all agree on. That's it. All right. Call a question to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned by Kognovich, seconded by
Second.
Newberry.
How many minutes?
Mr. Roussel? Mr. Bartholomew? Mr. Black? Thank you.
All right, 9-0. All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council, serving as the sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Parish Port Harbor and Terminal District, to close at 3:45 p.m.